Hello, Wildcat families, and welcome to this special edition of Cat Chat Live. We are going to be talking today about what happens after spring break and what your student might experience academically, and some tips and tricks on how to stay motivated and on track to complete a really successful end of the semester. My name is Nikki Jenkins. I am with the UK Parent and Family Association, and today with me is Dunn. He is an integrated success coach with the Office of Transformative Learning. So Ben, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to take it away.
All right, thank you, Nikki. So today, as she said, we will be working on surviving the spring break slump. So we'll talk a little bit about what the spring break slump is, what you can expect from what that looks like for students. And of course, we will talk about a lot of solutions today that will help, pick us out of the slump and get ready for the rest of the semester, and also how to think about the future, what that looks like for the summer or fall as well. So my name is Benjamin Dunn, or Ben. An integrated success coach here at the University of Kentucky, and I work for the Office of Transformative Learning. I've been in higher education a little over a decade now, and I'm also currently working on a doctorate in higher education administration. So just wanted you all to know who is in front of you today, and a little bit about me. So again, today we are talking about the spring break slump and what causes it. And so a lot of different things can cause the slump. I think it's different for every student because every student, has their own unique experiences and what we like to think of as a fabric of experiences that makes up that student. But here are some ideas of what may cause that slump for that student. And again, it could be different for every student, but we like to think about academic fatigue, lack of motivation. We also want to think about, the seasons changing. It's about to get warm. Hopefully it will stay warm. We think about allergies and other health-related things that are going on. We like to think about spring break in itself. This is something that a lot of students have been looking forward to. It's the break in the semester, but it's also an opportunity for them to, maybe get away for a while. But again, that thought of what's coming next is this break, that could be something that maybe could distract them from where they're at right now. And after they get back from the break, it could be it could still be a distraction for students that maybe had too much fun over break. So that's something to think about. And then a lack of clear goals, work-life balance is something that I don't think gets enough credit sometimes in terms of how difficult that can be, especially if it's a student that's working off campus or on campus, or maybe has other obligations. So all of these things help make up, that tired feeling that we have, that students have this time of the year. So it's not uncommon at all. It's very something that's real, but that's okay. We can deal with that because there's a lot of good solutions that can come from that can make everyone more successful after the break. So one of the things to think about during the break for our students is to think about rest and reset. When I was looking at this to build this presentation, I thought about how unique is it that the word rest and the word reset are almost the same word. There's one letter difference between reset and rest. And so thinking about, how you can use your time during spring break is something to think about. Of course, we don't want you to think too much about school during this time. We want you to try to think about, how you can get some rest, how you can reset, how you can really, take a moment to just be for yourself and all that. But, utilize spring break to get that rest, thinking about what that second half looks like of the semester. Try to develop a strategy if you can, and audit your success. So audit your success could look like, thinking about what wins you had during the first half of the semester, maybe even thinking about the wins that you had during the fall semester, thinking about things that went well, thinking about those exams that you did do well, that you really enjoyed, in those classes that you really enjoyed and all that. But really taking time to be in the moment and really reset where you're at. And of course, getting plenty of rest. So I also like to think about the spring break slump as something that goes on, not just with students, but we see this a lot in our athletes. So if you think about, it's March now, a lot of people are gearing up for March Madness and getting their brackets together and things like that. I'm sure everyone that's a fan of basketball or football can think of a game where the team, had a strong first half. They went into halftime, they came back on the other side, and they just didn't have it. So we like to think of that as the slump that we're talking about here. But now that spring break is over with and we're thinking about this analogy, halftime is now over. So what's the solution to get over the hump? What's the solution to get through the slump, if you will, and have a strong second half? It starts with review. For me, it starts with review. So thinking about how things went in the first half, as we mentioned, reviewing previous material. So some material that maybe you covered over the first half of the spring semester, just trying to get yourself back and familiar and getting back into that academic shape, to remember what you covered maybe in week 1 or week 2. And then also reviewing the syllabus is important. Thinking about, what are some important dates that we have coming up? What are some important tests that maybe we have to think about later on in the semester and things of that nature? But you want to review the syllabus and get familiar with what you are required to complete by the end of the semester. That's really important to think about because that's what you're going to have to face as a challenge in the second half. The next piece of this is something that's unique to integrated success coaching here at UK. But we call this the 3-to-1 support system. And you can meet with a coach, and I can talk more about coaching as we go through this. But, if you can meet with a coach and think about what your 3-to-1 support system is, this is a great way to think about how to get out of a slump and really start turning things from a negative into a positive. And so a 3-to-1 support system looks like this. So we believe that every student is more successful if they have supports in the academic category, if they have supports from the social and emotional category, and access to opportunity category. So your academic support category could look like anything from office hours to visiting a coach to visiting the study or a tutor on campus, making sure that you're familiar with the library and other areas on campus that can support you academically, and all of that nature. So really finding out what your resources are on campus that can support you academically, and what are those offices that you go to find success. Social and emotional, that could be really anything under the sun that will help you just feel better about what's going on. That could be a roommate, that could be going to the gym, that could be your family back home. That could be a club or organization, a fraternity or a sorority. That could be counseling. That could be an animal back home, or if you have an animal and you live off campus or something like that. It really could be anything that's going to help you propel socially, or really help you emotionally get through the challenges of the rest of the semester. And then access to opportunity is really a catch-all that is everything else. So if it doesn't fit into an academic support category, if it doesn't fit into a social or emotional category, it would be in the access to opportunity category. And to have access to something, you have to know about it. So those things would be like the Career Center. So if you're wanting to learn more about how to get your resume together, if you're wanting to learn more about what it's going to take to get to the next level after college, sometimes that can be a distraction for students that are trying to think about the next step before they can finish this step. Maybe it's the DRC, maybe it's the MLK Center, maybe it's CARES. It could be a number of things on campus, but these type of supports may help a student get through something that maybe they're dealing with that's not necessarily academically related. So thinking about what the student's 3-to-1 support is could be a big help in helping them get through the next half of the semester. Next is it's important for a student to think about what their why is. What led them to UK? I always like hearing how a student heard about UK and what led them to decide to come to UK. That's always an interesting story, and it's always different. But next, thinking about how did they find their major? How did they fall in love with what they want to spend the rest of their life trying to do? And for some students, they don't have a major. That's also important to keep in mind. But how can they find out what maybe their passions are and their values are? And then next, what do they want to do in the next 10 years? And that's sometimes difficult for students to answer, but it's very much connected to their motivation. And for some students, we've learned that there's a why behind why they do what they do and all that. And sometimes there's a why behind keeping them motivated. But for other students, it's a who. So for some students, maybe they're the first in their family to attend college. And they have a 4 or 5 siblings at home that are looking up to them, and that keeps them motivated. But it's important for a student to think about what their why is. Why are you in the classes that you're in right now? What's keeping you going? What's keeping that flame lit? And then for other students, it's important to think about, who motivates you? Who can you talk to when things get rough? And thinking about the who and the what and the why is always important to kind of keep you moving forward. The next piece is creating a start line for big assignments. So if you've already identified what's coming up in the second half of the semester, thinking about, the timeline of how do you create, that timeline for how you get these things done. And so at coaching, we have this tool called the start line, and that's the opposite of a deadline. So the word deadline already has some negative thought behind it because it has the word dead in it. So we've reframed that to be the start line. And we like to think about that as a way for students to put the emphasis and their energy into when they start the assignment and when they can get some things done throughout the course of the time frame to get it done early so that they can get it reviewed and have just a better product. So some questions to ask yourself if you're in that situation and you're building a start line or a timeline is how much time will you need to complete that assignment? When will you need to get it reviewed by a source such as a writing center, or even just having a friend or a family member read over it to help make sure that you're putting some fresh eyes on it? And then do you already have an idea that might help move the project along? And then what other assignments do you have that might compete for attention? What other variables do you have that you need to consider, such as work or maybe some other obligations? And then finally, what tools do you need to use to remind yourself? That could be very helpful because we have a lot of students that maybe get into the swing of doing things and then they miss an assignment. And it's not because they had a lack of motivation, but it could be just because they just didn't have the organizational skills to stay on top of it. So having tools to remind yourself is always critical. This is kind of what a timeline could look like. So you have your start date, and then you have milestones in between, and then you have your due date. So the goal was to always finish things before they're due. But with the milestones, you can actually hit snooze on them sometimes. And that's helpful for students to realize that they don't have to be perfect 100% of the time on things. But as long as you get it done before that actual due date so that you have that time at the end to get it reviewed, that's positive. And we want to make sure that we're creating that timeline that is both realistic, but also something that will help you continue to get things done earlier and allow you that time to get things reviewed when possible. So creating a start line for at least your major assignments is always a great idea. Next is to think about how we can be goal oriented. And again, goals is around everything that we're doing here. But a lot of students maybe don't know the difference between an outcome goal and a process goal. And so thinking about how we can get out of the slump is to think about what our outcome goals are, and then also think about what our process goals are that can help get those things done at a much more efficient way. So an outcome goal might be, by the end of the semester, I want to finish with a 3.0. And, to do that, you would have to look at where you're at right now. You would have to look at, where you're at this first half and how things are going and all that. But just saying that you want a 3.0 is not a bad thing. Thinking about how you can get there is a different process, though. So having the goal of a 3.0, I think is wonderful. That's setting the mark pretty high. But let's also think about the process of there. So the outcome goal, of course, is going to be the end result that you want, but the process goal is going to be those important steps or routines that you need to do to get there. And so to get that 3.0, a process goal might be that you want to study that test, or you want to study that material 3 times a week. And I want to do that by using flashcards. I want to do that in the library. I want to do that with my best friend and go, and so that we have a study group. So thinking about those processes, those are the things that are going to take things from good to great. Those things are going to help take you to a much different level. And if you can think about really good process goals or habits, then that outcome goal is pretty much going to take care of itself, because that's what's going to help get you there quicker. So this is an example of how that could look. So this is an example of a psychology class. And so you can see the 1 through 8 there are topics that are coming up on the next exam. And you can see in the middle there, we have an understanding rating of 1 through 5. And 5 is that I really understand it. And 1 is that I really don't understand it. And just keeping an honest track of that with yourself is very critical. And it's just you that's seeing this. So you can be honest with yourself about how well do I really know the material. And you can see on the right there, those are dates that I've studied this material. And you can see that there's a correlation between how comfortable I am with the material and how often I've studied it. But keeping up with this is just a really good way to understand how you're doing on things. And again, it's a process goal. So if you can study these things 4 or 5 times before the exam and really think about your technique and your strategy, that's going to be very helpful in the end when you go to take that exam, because you'll be able to see the correlation between how well you've studied, where you studied at, who you studied with, and how you've went about that process. And you'll be able to see that with the correlation of how well you've done on the exam. The next piece of this is just staying organized. I can't stress that enough, is just staying organized as much as possible and thinking about how you can do things a little bit differently than you did before. One of my favorite books that I've read in the last couple of years is called What Got Me Here Won't Get Me There. And I think that title, while it wasn't a strategic book on academics, that title fits, every bit of what we're trying to do here, trying to set higher goals to get us to a different level. So how can you get more organized? You can think about Google Tasks, or having a Google Calendar, or having some sort of system where you can actually look at the dates that are coming up and you can stay on top of it. I had a student that I met with this morning that told me that they have a system where they put a Post-it note on the blank area of their laptop, so that every day when they look at their laptop, they see their upcoming tasks and goals. And that allows them to not be able to ignore it, and allows them to really just stay on top of it as much as they can. And, every system is different. Every student may need a different type of system, whether that's a digital system or an analog system. But having a system is going to help you get out of that slump and really prepare for success. The next piece I want to talk about is some resources on campus. These, of course, are with the Department of Transformative Learning, where I'm at. But just shedding some light on these for students and parents that maybe don't know about them. So integrated success coaching is what I do, and we work with students to help build strategies with them. So if you think about a lot of business owners in the community, you think about entrepreneurs, you think about even some celebrities, they all have a coach that they can talk to about things. And a coach is someone that they can process information, they can talk about challenges, they can talk about wins and losses, and just how to get to the next level and think about growth. Well, at UK, we do the same thing with students. So with a student, we may work with a student on time management, we may work with a student on exam preparation, or procrastination or motivation, anything like that. And we help students rethink about how things that are going and how they can get to the next level. And we have a lot of nice tools that we can work with them on. And we've actually found that students that attend coaching 2 or 3 times a semester are far more likely to be successful. And I also think that's just because they have someone to talk to about it that, understands where they're at, can help them get to the next level. But we also have the study, which is a peer tutoring system that we have on campus that works with students through their math, science, or business courses. And then we also have Presentation U, which is really about communication. So any type of paper that they're working on, any type of PowerPoint, any type of lab report, or anything that's written, or any type of presentation that they're working on. Presentation U is a great place to go for that. And it doesn't matter what class it is. It's really more so about the type of assignment that they're working on. And Presentation U is going to work with them to help make that product better. And they even have this thing called e-tutoring, where you can submit a paper electronically, and then they can give you feedback on it the next day. So it's a really neat system that's unique. And then we also have supplemental instruction, which is currently going on with some of our classes. And what supplemental instruction is it's a way for students to get an additional support through the class, where someone is in the class that's already taken the class, and they get to actually hear an additional type of presentation on that material each week. So if they're in a class that offers supplemental instruction, it's a great way to really just get a different perspective on that material. And if it's something that they're not in right now, they can always ask their academic advisor about getting into a class that supports supplemental instruction. So all of these are great resources for students, and something that, if they're not already taking advantage of, it's something to check out, and they can see, if their class is supported by one of these. But they can always come to an integrated success coaching meeting and learn more about the resources on campus, and just how to take advantage of some resources on campus that may help them get through the slump. Next, just thinking about how you want to feel at the end of the semester is important for students. Kind of envisioning cutting down the net, if you will, for a basketball team, envisioning the championship and how it would feel. So how will it feel when you get to that goal that you set? How do you want to reward yourself? How do you want to celebrate that moment? And so something that kind of keeps me going in my classes right now is just trying to think about, how is it going to feel when I can actually check off that I'm one semester closer to my goal? How will it feel when I'm able to, share with my friends and family that, I got the goal that I was looking for with the GPA that I'm looking for. So, just trying to think ahead a little bit, not always be caught up in the moment that you're in right now, but try to think about how it's going to feel when you're able to celebrate that moment in a couple weeks. And so now I wanted to also talk a little bit about parents and how you can support a student that's in a slump. I think for many students, it's important for them to have someone that they can communicate with that maybe isn't at the university. So I think that's a great way for parents to kind of come in and just ask questions that will help the student, know that they're supported. And, a lot of that, honestly, is just around listening. A lot of students have different unique challenges and experiences here on campus. And, I think for parents, sometimes they don't always understand those, but it's important to just listen and kind of see how things are going with students, and see how you can help from a distance. And honestly, that makes a world of difference, just to have someone that you can, call home and talk to about things. But I would also caution to say, choose your battles. Just because your expectation is a 4.0 doesn't mean that the student shares that goal, and that's okay. I think sometimes it's important for the student to have their own goals and their own way of thinking about, how can they get to the next level, and on that. So just choosing your battles and listening, I think, is a good way to think about it. And more than anything, just show that you care, which I'm sure if you're tuning into this, I'm sure that you already do a great job of that. But nothing makes me feel better, even as a first gen student myself, Just to have my mom ask me, how's classes going? Just her saying that makes a world of difference for me. It lets me know that what I'm doing is important. It lets me know that I need to stay motivated and keep grounded on things. But I think, just saying those few words and listening makes a huge difference, even though it may feel like you want to do more. But I do feel like that's a great place to start with things. And then lastly, I wanted to leave everyone with a quote today. This is one of my favorite quotes that always keeps me moving forward. And it says, "The tragedy of life is not found in failure, but complacency. Not in you doing too much, but doing too little. Not in you living above your means, but below your capacity. It's not failure, but aiming too low, but it's life's greatest tragedy." And that's by Dr. Benjamin Mays, who was a longtime president of Morehouse College in Atlanta, someone that really just transformed education in the 1940s and 50s. But I've always found this quote to be something that kind of pushes me forward when I'm kind of in a slump. I just try to think about, am I really living above my capacity or below my capacity? Could I be doing more right now? And sometimes that's dangerous to think about if you're trying to get to the next level and you're burned out a little bit. But oftentimes we can do a little bit more each day to kind of get to the next level and try to reach our goals. So I wanted to leave you all with that quote. But again, if we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
Ben, thank you so much. That was so much great information. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how important it is this time of year for parents and families to show a little bit of extra support, after spring break and once students are coming back. And the weather's really going to look nice, and it's going to be real tempting to not go to class or to not have that extra study time. So anything that you as families can do to help support those students is going to be great. I know a lot of families tend to send postcards and letters and care packages during this time of year. They are always appreciated by students. And so you may want to do that. Maybe even get some friends together and make care packages for more than just your student. There's lots of fun ways and activities to support students during this time. So Ben, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all of that great information. If you are just tuning in and did not catch the entire presentation, it will be available on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page later today, so you can access it there. If you have any questions that come up while you're watching it, go ahead and put those in the comments, and we can always touch base with you later and make sure that you get the answers that you need to support your student. And of course, the Parent Family Association is always here to be a support to you, to families. So if you have a concern about your student during this time and you just need someone to talk to about it and to figure out what resources are available, we're here to support you in that. And I'm sure Ben as well is happy to help with that. So feel free to reach out to us, and we're always glad to hear from you. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. And again, if you need us, we are always here for you. Thanks so much, everyone. Go Cats.